this event is a part of a series of interviews. These are exclusive interviews with Israeli personalities, and that has been organized in collaboration with the Center of Jewish Studies in the University of São Paulo, as well as the group Bog de Hazit. Professor Suzana Chwarts, the director of CAJ, which is the Center of Jewish Studies, she would be here with us today, as it was divulged in the flyer, but she had some health issues and she was not able to be present here with us today. But the interview, she participated on writing the questions of the interview.
And let me introduce you in Portuguese to our audience. O nosso ilustre convidado é o Rabino.
Our wonderful guest is Rabbi Dr. Donniel Hartman, who is the chairman of the Shalom Hartman Institute and the chair of a Jewish family. He is the author of a very important book that was released. It's called Putting God Second, How to Put Religion for Itself. And he is the host of a very important podcast in the United States called For Heaven's Sake, one of the most popular for Jewish content in North America. He has also recently started a podcast in Hebrew for the Israeli public, Leman Nashem, and he presents this together with Don Elwin, dedicated to talk about what's happening in Israel at the moment from the Jewish point of view. I have been listening to this show for a while. So, Donniel.
Hi.
Yes. Donniel is responsible for some of the most solid education, training, and enrichment programs for scholars, educators, rabbis, and religious and lay leaders in Israel and North America. He is a preeminent essayist, blogger, as I mentioned one of his books, but also he has several others that we're going to talk about during the interview. For this presentation, we have here with us also Rabbi Reuben, that is the Dean of the Jewish Academy, and Eduardo from Gutberg Chazim is with us in the room. So I will start.
If one searches for Donniel Hartman on the internet, they will find about a rabbi, PhD in Jewish philosophy, professor, author of many important books, president of the Shalom Hartman Institute. Beyond the classic biographical descriptions, how do you define Donniel Hartman and why you are so passionate about Judaism?
I hope I'm a decent person. That's, that I'm a decent person who wants to serve my people. And that guides me in almost everything that I do. Why am I passionate about Judaism? I'm first passionate about Judaism because my Judaism starts with my connection to the Jewish people. Even though I'm paid to be a rabbi and a professional Jew, first and foremost, when I say Judaism, I mean the Jewish people. And one of the interesting features of Judaism is that the Jewish people come before Judaism. In Christianity or Islam, Paul translates the message of Jesus and Christianity comes into existence. Islam comes to existence after Muhammad receives the revelations of the Quran. And Muslims are those who follow Islam. Christians are those who follow Christianity. In Judaism, Judaism is given its religion, its name, because it is the religion of the Jews, not vice versa. So you ask me why I love my people, and I want to serve them, and I want to do right by them. And I want Judaism to be a force of meaning, inspiration, and guidance for them. And all my teaching and all the teaching of the people at the Hartman Institute, our job is how do we provide for Jews around the world a Judaism that they could respect, a Judaism that they could love, and a Judaism that inspires them. My job is not to pass on the past. My job is to try to give people a Judaism that could accompany them, both in the present and in the future.
You are doing it very well, in my opinion, and of the opinion of many people around the world.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next question. At the launch of the podcast Leman Hashem, which took place just after October 7th, you said that the choice of this name is to shake up the audience. You said, quote, "We need to change our paradigms. We also need to think differently from having been thinking so far. So this is also a call for me to think outside of the box." Well, now I ask you, how have you thought until now, how we thought until now, and what does it mean to think differently? What is the paradigm we have to change?
You mean after October 7th?
Yes.
There's October 7th changed a lot of things, and a lot of things stayed the same. One of the great struggles of all of us who've experienced October 7th is that for 20 years, we fantasized that Israel was a Scandinavian country. Israelis are the 7th happiest people in the world. That's proof that we're insane, but still, the 7th happiest people in the world? We really envisioned ourselves as being in another area. We blocked out the dangers around us. And it was conscious. We didn't want to see it. So people said they want to kill us. We said, don't worry, we have an Iron Dome. Oh, I want to kill you? Don't worry, we have an army. Oh, you want to kill us? Oh, don't worry. We're so much smarter and talented and stronger than you. And we created a bubble in which we wanted to think about other things: economic prosperity, democracy, ethics. But it was a Judaism and a Zionism of prosperity. Our enemies were there, but we had them under control. And if they weren't under control, we would just send the Air Force, they'd bomb for 3 days, we'd declare victory, and we'd go home. Part of the challenge after October 7th is, how do we do Zionism and Judaism in the midst of fear and trauma? We haven't had that really since 67. 73 a little bit, but since 67, where you don't know really how to keep your people safe. So one way, like last year, there was a great debate in Israel about judicial reform and the relationship between the courts and the government. And the big issue was the independence of the various branches of government and the recognition that without an independent judiciary, our democracy is in danger. Today, our democracy is in danger or challenged because of trauma and fear. Trauma, when someone's traumatized, you think about yourself. You don't want to hear about the human rights of other people. You don't want to think about Gazan civilians. You don't want to think about Israeli armies. You don't want to think about anybody else, but all you could do is concentrate on yourself. What's changed now is the challenges of Israel and Zionism are the same. How do we build a country where Jews who disagree are going to be able to live with each other? How do we build a country where human rights are an integral part of our Judaism, where democracy is a Jewish value, where we care for each other, where it represents the best of the Jewish people? But after October 7th, we have to do that in the midst of fear. And it's much harder because fear doesn't get rid of difference. It actually accentuates them. It makes them greater. Before October 7th, if you had an opinion or I had an opinion, okay, I didn't like you, but I could tolerate you. But now, after October 7th, everybody thinks that the other person's position is going to endanger our existence. Like, even how do we live with ultra-Orthodox? Beforehand, they didn't want to serve in the army. And we didn't want them to serve in the army. After October 7th, we need more soldiers. So your choices could cause my death. How do we deal with Israeli Arabs? How do we deal with the occupation of Judea and Samaria? All these larger questions, when they're put through the prism of fear, trauma, become much more difficult. Differences become more accentuated. And so the paradigm shift is, how do we get Israelis to go back to the larger Zionist agendas of before October 7th, but as October 7th Jews? Does that make sense to you? See, I can't see other people's faces nodding or this or that, so I'm going to count on you to give me some feedback. Okay?
Okay. Yeah. It's yes. About the changing. Our world was changing after October 7th, but you not propose just a change after October 7th. In your book, who are the Jews and who can we become? You argue that the Jews need a new story or a new storytelling that can inspire a majority of Jews to listen, discuss, and retell it. Which story is this? And which values, which beliefs, which commandments are crucial for this new story in this new Jewish identity?
I'll give part of an answer. First, I'll share what it's not. And what's not going to keep Jews together is anti-Semitism. And even if the world is more dangerous now for many Jews, and we think that we're more united, it's short-lived. Most Jews in the world could leave. You don't inherit your Judaism by definition or by default. You have to choose to want to embrace it. So we need a story that could inspire us. Now, part of what I try to do on 1 foot, or the book, I do it in 300 pages, but now I'll do it on 1 foot, is first, we need a story that combines what I call the 2 covenants of Judaism. The Genesis covenant, the book of Genesis, and the book of Exodus covenant. The book of Genesis covenant is a very interesting covenant. It's a covenant in which God makes Abraham earn the election, but the Jewish people inherit it. We don't do anything. The book of Genesis has no commandments, has no obligations. One of the stories of being a Jew is that Judaism is who you are, not what you do or what you believe. It's to see yourself as part of a family. That's a deep part of what it means to be a Jew. That as a religion, I am embraced for who I am. There are no good Jews, there are no bad Jews. We are part of a people and a community who've walked together for 3,000 years. That demands loyalty. It demands tolerance for different Jews. It demands acceptance of all Jews for whoever they are. It's a story which we tell, which brings Jews together without judgment. Maybe using the Christian term of grace. It's a covenant of grace, covenant of welcoming and lack of judgment. That's what Jews were in Genesis. And then in the book of Exodus, another covenant is given. It's not Jewishness for who you are, but Jewishness for who you can be. In the book of Exodus, God commands and says, I want something from you. I want you to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. I want moral and spiritual greatness from you. I want Judaism to be the antithesis of mediocrity. I want a people who stand for something, who aspire for something great. Now, if the covenant of Exodus is by itself, and there's good Jews, there's people who do it better and people who do it worse. There's denominations. Oh, I'm an Orthodox Exodus Jew. I'm a conservative. I'm a Reform. I'm a better Jew than you. If all we had was Exodus, we would have been divided into hundreds of little synagogues and churches and communities. If all we have is Genesis, then we're a people like all other people, but mediocre. The story of the Jewish people is a story of how Genesis and Exodus combine with each other. That if you push for a Judaism of Exodus, you can't do so by rejecting and judging other Jews as bad Jews. You can't accept Jews for who they are without also saying, can you be more? It's on one foot, but it's a way of talking about 3,000 years of Jewish life, which balances these two stories. It's not one or the other. And anytime we pick one, something gets lost in the Jewish story. Something gets lost. And by the way, just like there are two covenants in Judaism, there are also two types of Zionism, I write. There's a Genesis Zionism and an Exodus Zionism. A Genesis Zionism is, I want an Israel so that Jews could be safe. I just want to be, what do I want to be? I just want to be safe, that's all. That's it. Don't talk to me about anything else. I want a place where Jews could be like everybody else. The Exodus Zionism says, I want an Israel which will represent the best of the Jewish people. That we didn't come home just to escape anti-Semitism. We came home to be a model society. And to this very day, these two Zionisms are always in competition with each other. And after October 7th, they're even in greater competition. Who do I deal with? Like a lot of the conversations about the war. Is it a just war? What are our responsibilities to Gazan civilians? Should we bomb? Should we not bomb? Should there be a ceasefire? Is an argument between Genesis Zionism and Exodus Zionism.
You start the last answer talking about anti-Semitism. And for the anti-Semitism, there isn't Orthodox, conservative, or Reform Jews. All of us are just Jews. And what about the anti-Semitism the world is so proudly displaying?
Okay, it's a big question. And here, I apologize, I don't know a lot of your life, and your experiences are very different from my own. I grew up part of my life in Canada, part of my life in the United States, and the other part of my life in Israel. In my nature, I am someone who belittles anti-Semitism. I don't like anti-Semitism. I don't mean I don't like it because I don't like it that people hate us. I don't like it when anti-Semitism is seen as a catalyst for Jewish identity, as a glue. Oh, Hitler didn't distinguish between Jews, but how many Jews does that influence? For like a year, like right afterwards, we go back to hating each other really quickly. Anti-Semitism creates the myth that you could have a mediocre Judaism because they will keep you Jewish. What is the definition of a Jew in an anti-Semitic world? He or she who they hate. Okay, so for some people, that's enough. That's not enough for me. I never felt like, really? Like, really? Who am I? It's who they hate is me. That's it. That's all I stand for. So I never liked what anti-Semitism does to Jewish institutions. It also very often drains emotional, intellectual, educational, and financial resources. Jews also love anti-Semitism. I mean, good anti-Semitism. Good anti-Semitism is where they hate us enough to keep us Jewish, but they don't hate us enough to kill us. Like, that's good. Like, Jews don't like bad anti-Semitism, but we like good anti-Semitism. I'm not dying and, oh, look, everybody is connected. Everybody's showing up, you know, and it doesn't matter. So my rabbis could give bad speeches and my curriculum could be mediocre, but thank God we have some anti-Semitism. So I never liked it. So like, I have a bias. But around the world, many Jews are experiencing more fear than they felt for decades. And it's true. Part of our challenge is how do we survive and live in this environment? But here I want to move slightly away from the question, or we make a mistake when we define everybody who criticizes Israel as an anti-Semite. Not every criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. It might feel anti-Semitic, but it's not. There are a lot of people who don't hate Jews. They just disagree with some of the things that Israel's doing. That's not an anti-Semitic statement. And we have to learn how to talk with them. Otherwise, our world will get smaller and smaller. For 2,000 years, Jews lived not only in a physical ghetto, we also lived in an emotional and intellectual ghetto. Anti-Semitism made us this small. Anti-Zionism could do the same. And we could say, they're lying, they're anti-Semites, there's nothing, we're the best. Why didn't they say this to this person? Why didn't they say this to that person? I think our challenge today is how do we defend ourselves against anti-Semitism? But how do we not use it either as a myth of unity and Jewish meaning, or as the vehicle through which we deal with every criticism of Israel? That's not going to do us well. It's perfectly legitimate for somebody to say Israel has to stop the war in Gaza. It's perfectly legitimate for someone to say Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. I could think they're wrong, but it's not an inherently anti-Semitic statement. So let's talk about it. So when I say anti-Semitism, I shut down the conversation. Let's have an argument. But more than that, Israel. When people criticize you in our tradition, that's considered a blessing, because they put up a mirror and ask you to look at yourself. Doesn't mean you have to agree. But anti-Semitism shuts down conversations, and I think in doing so, is going to make the Jewish people more mediocre, and actually, paradoxically, is going to make the Jewish world, the world more dangerous for the Jewish people.
Well, you told about the good anti-Semitism. What about the evil? What about the Amalek? How you define evil?
Okay, what about evil?
Yeah.
Evil is actually, one of the nice things about evil is that it's really clear to see it. Evil embodies people for whom only their lives matter, for whom killing and death are legitimate means to achieving an end. Evil are those who don't distinguish between soldiers and non-soldiers. Evil are people who burn bodies, rape women, and slaughter children. Evil is actually very easy to identify. And for evil, as an Israeli, I have one simple answer. I carry a gun. I am a liberal who carries a gun. I don't do victimhood. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. Oh, look at them. They were killed. I don't do victimhood. I don't want pity. I am going to fight evil. And I think one of our jobs is to identify it, to point to it, and to fight against it. That's why I don't try to convince anti-Semites not to be anti-Semitic. I don't try to explain them. What did they do? Nothing. I don't try to justify what caused Hamas. I'm not interested. The only thing I want to know is, what do I have to do to live? And living in the face of evil is a liberal value. Because if human beings have human rights, guess who also has a right? Me. If all human beings are created in the image of God, guess who else is created in the image of God? Me. Evil? Zionism is about the Jewish people defending ourselves from evil. But it's there, and it's dangerous. Now, Israeli Jews, there is an important distinction between hard power and soft power. Hard power is the power which uses military might. Soft power uses economics, education, public relations, diplomacy. Russia and the United States are the two greatest nations in the world which use hard power. China is the greatest nation in the world which uses soft power. I mean internationally, not internally. So Russia and the United States use hard power to achieve their political aims and goals. China uses soft power to achieve its political aims and goals. Industry, Confucius centers, workers, buying resources, etc. Israel is the only other democracy in the West which also uses hard power. But there's a difference. And this is one of the reasons why we have such challenges with evil. Because in most of the world, people use, and Jews use, soft power. Who do we know? Who's going to speak to somebody? How do we use our financial resources? Who do we call? Who do we vote for? All of those are soft power. American Jews are the masters of soft power. The masters of soft. But when you encounter evil, soft power is not enough. And for many people, the minute they see you using the hard power, you become the evil person. And so one of the tragedies is that when you use hard power to fight evil, some people could begin to, they forget what inspired your use of hard power, and then they begin to attack you as well. But unfortunately, my friend, part of what we are living in the midst of evil that we cannot afford to ignore anymore. But how we attack it, whether we use hard power all the time, that's another question. Because one last observation, both the United States in Iraq and Afghanistan and Russia in the Ukraine both discovered the limits of hard power. Because you have a hammer, not every problem is a nail. And part of the challenge that Israel has to ask and deal with evil is hard power enough? Are all the people who reject us, are they the same? Is Hamas and the Palestinians the same? Are Hamas and Gazan civilians the same? So here too, evil it's critical that you see it, you watch it. I'm not interested. I'm not going to allow evil to harm me or anybody that I know without me doing everything that I can to protect this. That's the gift of Israel. But at the same time, hard power doesn't give you always the peace and success that you really yearn for.
Well, I'm with your word. Soft power is not enough. Wow.
Hard power is not enough.
Okay.
Hard power and by the way, soft power is not enough either. If I use soft power here in Israel, I'd be dead.
In your what is your experience nowadays with the people, the families in Israel right now?
Oi. First of all, oi. Could you translate oi into Portuguese? Did it come? Oi.
I think I could. I did the same breathing.
Good. Oi, good. Good for you. Thank you, my friend. By the way, am I speaking too quickly or is it okay?
Go. It's great. Don't worry.
Okay. I worry because that's what I do. I worry. I want to make sure that you're okay also. But families are in a very ambivalent place. People are still carrying the trauma of October 7th. They're also carrying the fear of October 7th. They're aware that there's somebody here who wants to kill us and has no moral limits that guide them. That's a very scary place to be. And it's not an easy place to be. Israelis are very much like a family. And there's no one in Israel who hasn't been at least to 10 funerals of family members, workers, children, grandchildren, everybody. And so there's also a sadness. At the same time, on October 8th, there was clarity. And that clarity was that we need to defeat Hamas. And that defeating Hamas is a moral war. We have a right, if there ever was a just war, this is a just war. To remove a murderous terrorist group from your borders, what's a more just war than that? Tell me, what? But part of what is the more complicated place where Israelis are now is they're beginning to suspect that the moral clarity of October 8th, which said we need to win, is not going to happen. We're not going to get the victory that we have a right for. We may have a right to destroy Hamas. It doesn't mean that we're going to be able to destroy them. We have a right that Hezbollah shouldn't threaten us. But that doesn't mean that we're going to be able to remove them. And so there is also a lot of uncertainty about what the future is going to be. In one of my English podcasts, I spoke about the end of Messianic Zionism. Zionism promised that it would solve all of our problems. Jews would be safe, everything would be great. On October 8th, we embraced Messianic Zionism. Messianic hope. Hamas is evil, and therefore we're going to destroy them. That was it. We might not be able to. And so there's trauma, there's fear, there's anger, and there's, like when sometimes when the water and there's waves, you have oceans, right? You get out, when there's a big water, you have to find your feet. Well, there's like a tide now pushing us. And we're trying to find our feet. And we're trying to find it in the midst of a government that the vast majority of Israelis doesn't feel either they trust or knows how to talk to us at this time. Netanyahu, for example, is still speaking messianic hope. I'm going to win, and it's still that power. And so, but we need someone to talk to us, like, talk to me straight. Help me understand, help me think, talk to me emotionally. But he doesn't have the ability to do that. And so that makes Israelis even more confused. And at the same time, what sits on most Israelis is not just the complexity of defeating Hamas, it's also bringing our hostages home. So, and in the midst of that, by the way, going on with life. For 2-3 months after the war started, basically till the end of December, I'm the president of a very large institution with close to 400 employees. And I told everyone, when the war started, I immediately told everyone, nobody has to do anything they can't do. If you can't do it, don't do it. You come to work, good. You can't come to work, okay. You can work, but you can't work. Most people were working between 10 and 20%. But now, Israeli society is not on October 7th or 8th. We're back. We're back to work. People go out for supper. They go to movies. And so we're trying to build the day after, but October 7th, October 8th, and also a lot of uncertainty are sitting on us. And so we're dancing between October 7th, October 8th, and February, what's today? February 25th. We're dancing. And it's not an easy time. But at the same time, one of the good news stories is that we have so many great people in our country. I mean, people, it's an honor to say that you're a Jew, to be able to be in their midst. We have military heroes. We have family heroes. We have social justice heroes. We have people who stood up and said, if you're in trouble, I'm with you. I'm with you. Women have emerged as some of the greatest heroes of Israeli society. There's so with all the confusion, there's also and understanding that we're not in this alone. We don't have great politicians, but we have great citizens. And that helps too.
Well, thank you for sharing this. We have a question from the audience. Jorge asked, what kind of soft power tools is Israel overlooking in your view?
Is Israel overlooking?
Overlooking.
Oh, overlooking. Negotiations with Palestinians, negotiations with the Gulf states, negotiations with Israeli Arabs, negotiations with Europe, with Democrats in the United States. It's like we're like Netanyahu. Could people see my face? Are people able to see my face? So we're like, it's like Netanyahu gets up, we are right, we're this. I believe that Jews, we survived because we knew how to maximize every resource that was available to us. I think that unless we're forced by others, we feel more comfortable with soft power, with hard power, excuse me. Now, Netanyahu himself, when it came with the Gulf states, he exercised soft power. He did. But it was Donald Trump who brought it together. On its own, it's like, there's an EQ and an IQ, your intelligence and your emotion, your intelligence quota and your emotional quota. Sometimes I feel Israel's emotional quota, our EQ, is too low. And so I believe it's not public relations. See, public relations doesn't work if it's not supported by policy. And it needs nuance. It needs compromise. And so those are some examples of the soft power that Israel, I believe, could use much more effectively. And it would actually make our use of hard power much more successful.
We need dialogue, negotiation.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
And negotiations, I'll just tell you, you want to know something? Listen, I think it's funny. There's a word win-win, and then there's zero-sum game, and there's win-win, right? In Hebrew, there's a word for zero-sum game. There is no word for win-win. There's no Hebrew word. I won't tell it to you because my translator said not to tell you words, so I won't tell it to you. But the word, it doesn't matter. But don't translate it if they hear it good. Zero-sum game in Israel is mischak schum efes. That's what it means. When you want to say win-win in Hebrew, you say vin-vin. There's no word. Soft power accepts win-win. Like, it's okay. There's an Israeli politician who once went to the White House. And in the White House, they said, this is a great outcome. It's win-win. And the Israeli politician then went to my friend who was with him, and he said, what's win-win? Is that where we win once and then we win again? So that says it all.
Oh, wow. And what word of Torah? I know this is your basic tools. What word of Torah can help us, inspire us in this situation, and maybe to enhance our empathy, to promote healing and hope?
God said to Abraham, go forth from your father's house, from your place of birth, from your land, to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great. And you shall be a blessing. Our job is to survive as a great nation. But our responsibility is also to be a blessing. And we can't see them as zero-sum games. We can, to all of you, it's a difficult time. I want to be a great nation. I want to be strong. But I also want to be a blessing to the world. That's what I was picked to do. That's who I was picked to do. Our job now and as the months to come is how to, with great pride, we stand up for our right to be a great nation. And we stand up to our responsibility to be a blessing. How to do that? We can have different opinions. Nobody knows. But let's create a community where these two blessings come together. These two responsibilities are there. How to do that? That's, one might believe that this is more dangerous, and another might believe that something else is more dangerous. I'm fine. I don't believe that we have to agree about policy, but can we agree that these two values, to be a great nation and to be a blessing, is what defines the Jewish people? That, not anti-Semitism, that, not war, is what's going to unite and ultimately enable us to get through these times.
Oh, generally, we start a meeting with a Devar Torah. We are almost closing with a Devar Torah right now. Rabbi Ruben Sternchen, there is a question, I think.
Yes, please.
Okay. I was muted. Now I can ask. Donniel, thank you for all your insights. If you can choose one source, one paragraph of our sources, or one teaching of your life as a scholar, or as a rabbi, or as a president, or as an activist, or as the son of, or as the brother of, because you are such a special family, so beloved. Which part would you pick in order to help us in this situation, not becoming just a bond of anti-Semitic bias Jews? You understand what I mean, yes?
Sure.
So that our motivation will be Judaism and not anti-Semitism.
My favorite.
How can we change that?
Right, my favorite piece of Torah on this, because that's you're like, what is it? It would be, I think it's page 31a, I believe, in the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Shabbat, where a convert comes to Shammai, to the Rabbi Shammai, and says to him, convert me on condition that you teach me all of Judaism while I stand on one foot. And Shammai says, what, you crazy? I don't want mediocre Jews. Tell me you're willing to be Jewish is serious on one foot. There is no such thing. And he kicks him out using the building blocks that were in his hands, because back then, rabbis weren't allowed to get paid. They had to work. So when you came to ask a rabbi a question, you went to the building site. He then comes to Hillel and he says, convert me on condition that you teach me all of Judaism while I stand on one foot. And Hillel converts him. So let's stop there for 1 second. He converts him. He recognizes that there could be lots of types of Jews. And if there are lots of types of people who were born Jews, there could also be lots of types of converts. And he basically says there's no condition to becoming a Jew other than if you want to do that. I love that. If you want to be a Jew, come on in. And what type of Judaism you're going to live? Go for it. You'll do it this way, that way. Just like there's Jews who are different, so there could be. He converts him on the spot. And then he says to him, what's hateful unto you, do not do unto others. That is all of Torah. The rest is commentary. Go and study. That live a life in which you ask not what another person deserves. That's hard. What do they deserve? I don't know what I want to give them. I don't know if I have enough. Don't be naive. I can't do it right now. Tomorrow. We have all the excuses in the world. Hillel says, shut up. Hillel says, do you know what you know? Everybody's an expert, not on what the other deserves. They're an expert in what they hate. So now, as a rule of thumb, treat people the way you want to be treated. And then he says, do you know what that is? That's the whole Torah. That's the whole Torah. Everything else is commentary. And you know what that means? It doesn't mean that there isn't ritual or that everything is ethics. But it means that when you live your Jewish life, when you keep Shabbat or Kashrut or learn Torah or do anything, the ethical standards has to be a prism through which you engage with the world. I love being part of a Judaism which says, what's hateful unto you, do not do unto others. That's the whole Torah. So I want to tell you that has already guided 2 books of mine, both Putting God Second and now this teaching here of this book on Who Are the Jews. That's an integral part. You asked me, is it Kelita? You asked, is it what's the story that we could tell? Hillel is a big part of a story that says you should be proud to be a Jew, because for 2,000 years, this is a foundation of the story we told as a people. For me, I find inspiration in that story every day.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for.
Yeah, thank you.
For the,
and I know people asked chats, but we didn't get to them, and I apologize.
Yeah. We have to close this interview. In Israel is very
late.
And I would close with one last question, and you, of course, can tell what do you want to close. I would like to know if something will change in your educational programs for after.
Yes, everything has changed. Everything and nothing has changed. My core values, I am a liberal Jew and a liberal Zionist. I'm a liberal Zionist in the sense, liberal, which means liberties, freedoms. I believe that all human beings are created in the image of God. I believe that people are endowed with inalienable rights, the right to live, the right to safety, the right to freedom of religion, regardless of your gender or national or religious identities. You know, I believe that in the pursuit of peace. So I'm a liberal Zionist. I'm also a liberal Jew, which believes that the modern world has taught us wonderful things that have to be merged into Judaism. Women's rights, gender equality, LGBTQ sensitivities, attitudes towards non-Jews, the value of democracy. There are so many things that I learned in the modern world, and my Judaism has to implement them. Now, those core teachings of the Institute stayed the same. But now, how I teach it, I told all my people that if you try to teach that now, nobody's listening. And you have to deal with people's fears, with people's traumas. And so every curricular unit, I told every department head at the Institute, the curriculum that you had prepared on October 6th is no longer approved. No longer approved. The curriculum is now under the vision of Israel. What's your vision of Israel tomorrow? And how do you speak to Israelis today? The values at the end are going to stay the same. But how you talk about them, how you encourage people to even begin to think about them, It's just so much harder. I can't tell you, I'm pushing away. But, you know, prophets were the biggest failure in Jewish history. Prophets had a moral vision, but they didn't understand people. That's why they talked and nobody listened. Centuries later, Jews listened. Our job is not to be prophets, no matter what you believe. Our job is to be teachers. And teachers and rabbis speak to people where they are and in the language that they could hear. The change in the Hartman Institute is how do we take our vision of Judaism and our vision of Zionism in Israel, our vision of human rights for Jews and non-Jews, our vision for religious pluralism, our vision which pursues peace, and now teach it to a traumatized, frightened, and sometimes angry Israel. As the Chinese said, may you live in complicated times, that's the greatest curse of all. I don't see it as a curse. It's just, it's our destiny. And it's our job to embrace it and to remember at the end of the day, we have to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Anything less than that is not worthy of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rabbi, for your contribution, your time. It was very inspiring to hear you. And
thank you.
You gave us.
It was nice being with you. I don't know. I see all these boxes. I assume that there's real people behind these boxes. But Kelita and Ruben, it was very nice at least being with you.
Thank you.
My nice translator, thank you as well.
Perhaps this last minute, Nathan can allow all the people to open their cameras. I think it was a mess because Donniel wanted people to be seen, and the people wanted to be seen also. It was a problem of technology.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Don't worry. It was nice being with whoever was here, and I hope. Listen, I don't know when. Have a good life. Be safe, and push.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You gave us a lot of to think about. And as Academia Judaica and also as a Jewish Study Center of USP, we have now, with your words, a lot to do.
My pleasure. You should all be well. Good night.
And perhaps we could manage to do more initiatives and more dialogues like those, because both the Center for Jewish Studies at the University of São Paulo and the Jewish Academy at the CP, both are very, very interested in learn together with the Hartman spirit.
As we say at the Hartman Institute, inshallah.
אוקיי, אינשאללה.
If Allah so wills. Be well,
כל
everybody.
טוב. תודה רבה.
תודה רבה, שבוע טוב.
Thank you.